Is a businessman Nahashan Rachuya. We also have John Kirubi, who is an economist, joining us live from our city center studios. Let me begin with you, Nahashan. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, your education background, and what you do for a living. Okay,
I'm Nahashan, and I own at Kikomba. I do Ion Mutumba. I'm a graduate from Laikipia University. I graduated on 2014. And from that time, I've been looking for a job.
Right.
And for those 3 years, I've not secured one, of which I got a job. I was employed in one of the hospital, big hospital here. But the job I got was for cleaning. And as a graduate and you are cleaning, there's that motivation, and you feel like this is not where you fit.
All right. You mean you have a degree?
I have a degree in education. So I've been to many interviews here and there, but then to secure a job, that's the problem. The big issue is about experience. Every job you go, they want to know your year of experience, the time you have been there. But due to that, they don't give that opportunity, that platform, so that you can gain that experience, irrespective of the salary they are giving. Even without looking at how much you are being paid, you are not being given that platform so that you can be able to prove yourself. So I decided now, because of hustling here and there, so after graduation 2014, I stayed for around 3 months without a job. So I could not stay at Ushago at home. I was forced to come to Nairobi to one of my cousins. So I stayed there, and still he was also a hustler. So we decided that we can open a car wash somewhere near Kariobangi, and that's what we did. But due to we did not have the license to operate at the right, so there started disturbance from the city council and the right. So that still was a challenge. So I decided now I need to look for another job. But this now it's not official. So I approached one of my friends, and I told him, please give me a job. He owns a wholesale shop. He sells phones. So he made me one of the manager at Ebu. So I had to travel now from Nairobi to shift to Ebu. So I went to Ebu, and I started doing the job. But then after 3 months, I got another job from Hipora Business Solution. So I went there for an interview, and we were interviewed. But that time, I was almost to my graduation. So the time I was supposed to report the work, they told me to report the work. That was the time that I was going for my graduation. So I lost that job. So still I stayed for another 6 months, allowed 6 months without a job, and still I'm in Nairobi. So there is a guy who is my friend. He's a carpenter somewhere in the Kariobangi, so I could go there, hang around. I could get my 150, and because I was not paying rent, I was staying in my friend's house. It was manageable. I could get something to eat at the right. So from there, I got a job to one of the hospital, but the job that I was got was for cleaning. For cleaning, right. So for housekeeping, that is. So I worked for 2 years, but he told me, the guy who connected me there, told me that come, you hang around here, do the clinic job, but with the time, I will see what we can do. So I stayed there for around almost 2 years, because I quitted there from April. All right, so why did you quit? So I was shifted from cleaning. I was taken to another department called cardiac, and I was working for long hours. So I could report to work at 6, I go home at around 8. And I decided at then there was no adjustment of the salary. So the salary was very low. So I decided now, even if I stay here, I'm struggling like a hustle out there. So it's like there's no different. So still I need to quit. So I quitted, and still I went ahead. I'm still in Nairobi. That time I was now staying in my own house. I need to pay rent now. It's my house now. I'm not staying with my friend. So I realized now I need to figure out what I need to do. By that time, I quitted on April this year. So from that time to around September, I did not have a job. So I was going to Shago. I could manage to get for the rent. It's a 1-bedroom. It's a single house. So it was alleging around 3,500. So I could manage here and there. But I one day decided now I will not stay in the house anymore.
Right. So you now want to start a business?
I now need to
employ yourself.
I'd employ myself.
All right, talk to us about that.
I went to Gekoba. There's a friend of mine called Paul. I went there, that when Gekoba banned. By that time, I went to City Hall. I went to see Sonko, our governor in Nairobi. Right. So I went there, and I wanted to be employed in the Sonko rescue team. By that time, he was employing people for garbage collection. So I decided, instead of staying home, let me go there. I went there in the City Hall. I was outside. Now I asked myself, where do I start? I have not applied for this job. To book for appointment for the governor is a problem. So I decided now I need to go home. By that time, Gekoba burnt the same day. So I decided, let me go and hang around at Gekoba to my friend. I see how the damage was. So I went there and I met him. He usually ironed there. So we talked and he told me, now instead of staying home, now when I went there, so they expect a lot from you. You are a graduate. They thought at that time I was in the hospital doing a hospital job. They expect you to have a lot of cash. So they told me, oh, you have arrived. You have come the right time. Today we don't have a job. Now you need to buy us lunch, you know. And I told them, no, you're talking about lunch, and I only have 50 bob for the fare to get back home. Why? I told them I quitted the job, and for those few months, I've not been working. All
right, so let's get to your business, because we have to speak to our economists at our city center studios. Let's get to your business. What business did you decide to begin, and where did you get that capital? So
I decided, I went there, I talked with the Paul, and he told me that now you can come and work here at Gekoba. We usually iron and we usually get an average of this amount. So he told me you should get an average of 1,500 a day and the like. So I decided now I can come. We went to Gara. I bought my iron box. There is a stud that usually used for ironing. I also bought that stud. And then I started working. So I went there. We usually rent a day. We usually pay 300. That is for the electricity, 200, and now for the space, 100.
So how much capital total did you need to start?
So I started with 3,500.
Was it readily available for you then?
That time I did not have that money, so I had to call a friend of mine. I told him, you know what, I have gotten a place where I can start something, a job, but I don't need that much. So he invested me 4,000. That time I told him I need 4,000 because I don't know how the iron box will go. That is for the second hand. So I went there, I bought for the second hand iron, and then I went home. The following day I reported. And then I started working. All
right, so let's stop there. We'll come back to how your business is faring. Let's speak to John Kirubi, who is an economist now joining us from our city center studios. If you've been listening to Nahashan's story, Mr. Kirubi, he is a graduate from the Laikipia University with a bachelor's degree in education. What does this mean about the fate of graduates in the country in terms of job creation and employment?
Thank you very much, Michelle. First of all, as a correction, my name is John Kiremi. Yeah, and my
yes, we apologize for that. Go ahead.
Finance and accounting. That story that we are hearing is really typical of very many other stories that we have around the country. And it means really that as a country we have a lot of work to do to get our youth working. Because the country here in Kenya is a very young country. A lot of people are youngsters, and unless we get them busy, we'll have a problem.
Right, but Mr. Karimi, it is almost impossible to keep all our graduates busy by employing them, and that's why there has been a lot of entrepreneurship and personal job creation being championed in the country. But the downfall to that is that most of these graduates do not have, enough security to get capital from lending institutions like banks, especially in the wake of the cap on interest rates in the country. Do you think this is something that needs a review as banks are now asking for?
All along, I've always thought that the capping of interest rates was the wrong thing to do, because capping of interest rates is effectively like placing in a price control. And for those who are old enough, they know the times when we had price controls, interest rate controls, and exchange controls, the economy was not moving forward that well. So quite apart from the interest rates rise, we also need to do what we can do on these youth, particularly the Youth and Gender Ministry, which has been allocated money to help the youth start up some businesses. That is the area that we need to emphasize on, in addition to letting the money market work freely without interest rate caps or any other type of caps.
And with that being said, there's been a lot of promises made to graduates and young people in the country, especially with the swearing in of President Uhuru Kenyatta. The Jubilee government has promised about 1.6 million new jobs. It has also made several promises, or are in talks of having about a 1-year payable internship after graduating for some of the graduates in the country. But is this sustainable to do as a country?
Well, it depends very much on whether there is enough money to keep it going and sustaining it. And also, if there is not enough money, whether the money is going to be utilized properly for the purposes. As you have seen, there have been a lot of promises to various categories of people in the form of affirmative action to sort of get them started. But many times that money doesn't get to the hands of the ultimate beneficiary. So while the idea is good, while whatever is planned is good, implementation is going to be crucial.
All right, many thanks. That is economist John Karimi. He is live with us from our city center studios. And in the studio, we have Nahashan Rachwea, who is a businessman. We'll be coming back with these two gentlemen as we speak more about the economy and what is in store for graduates in the country in Uhuru Kenyatta's second term. This is Your Money on Morning Express. Take a